All right, welcome back to Worst Seats in the House. Mike Russo, Anthony LaPanta. This is the first time I've seen Anthony in a couple weeks since before the bye week. I assume that you got a lot of stuff done around the house.
Yeah.
New bathroom, did everything that Margot wanted you to do.
Close. I did open a few bottles of wine for her because it's February now, so that worked out.
She's in a better mood.
Yeah, that was great. That was the best thing that happened to our house. It was a pretty uneventful break around our house. We have one semester left of collegiate tuition in our household, so we're hoping that next year there's a vacation on the docket. But This year it was just to stay at home. We got a couple minor things done, but for the most part, just relaxed, enjoyed a little time off, and now ready to get back to work for the stretch drive.
Yeah, I just got back from Chicago today. Wild won 2-1 yesterday in Chicago. Speaking of 2-1, the February 21st is our next live show at Elsie's, so come on down there. Thanks to Tuddles for having us tonight. Thanks to Grain Belt for, as always, sponsoring this show. We got a live mic there for you to come up and ask live questions, and if you ask a question, you get a T-shirt. So definitely take advantage of that. Wild won 2-1 in Chicago last night. Not the greatest game by any stretch of imagination to watch, to be at. Fourth line was outstanding with Jake Lucchini, Vinny Lettieri, and Brandon Duhaime, which, to me, I almost expected it because a lot of Wild fans were up in arms that Adam Beckman wasn't put in the lineup, and you're just thinking, all right, if that's going to happen, it's probably going to come in for Lucchini. And here, Lucchini now probably is not being. You're not changing that line going into the Penguin game. Freddie Gaudreau would probably be now the guy to go to that fourth line if Lettieri was going to move up, or maybe Beckman was cast to go in for Pat Maroon, who's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. But that fourth line really ran the show yesterday and won them the game.
Well, I thought the third line was great, too. Rossi was analytically the best player on the ice for Minnesota in the game. Foligno was terrific. And we've talked a lot this year about the fact that the way the NHL has changed is that there isn't a lot of competition anymore on a lot of rosters for spots in the lineup because everybody's so tight to the cap. And these are the kind of spots where, all right, maybe it lights a fire under Brandon Duhaime or Lucchini to know that there's another guy there, another healthy body there that could slide in for them. I think that internal competition could be good. Those two lines were both really good last night, and the Wild had to have it. I thought defensively they were terrific. I mean, Chicago had almost no chances. One shot on goal in the first period, first time in the Wild history that they had only allowed one shot on goal in the first period of a game. And that was a little bit indicative of the way the team has played when they've been good here during the John Hines time. But they just couldn't get that separator goal to make the game comfortable, and that's what's plagued them so much during this recent stretch.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I missed the Tampa game, so I didn't get to experience John Hines showing his displeasure after that loss. But after a win last night, you would have thought they lost. John was not happy with the way the team played. Said the standard needs to be higher, and he was clearly calling out some of the top 6 guys. I thought Eriksson Ek was really quality in the game, but there were a couple wingers.
He always is.
Yeah, but there were a couple wingers that were absolutely not. Leader of the pack there, Matt Boldy, just way too perimeter.
I really thought, other than Eriksson Ek, I thought the entire top 2 lines they were off, and I don't know what's missing. There's something that's not there though for those groups, and they're not going anywhere if the top 6 don't carry the load. You can win occasionally, and depth scoring is going to be important. But if this team's going to go on the kind of run they have to go to make a playoff push, which is to probably win 2 out of 3 games the rest of the way realistically, it's got to be carried by the top 6.
And Foligno basically called them out after the game last night. I don't know if you heard the quotes, but it was, I mean, when he was talking about they're killing themselves by not playing direct hockey, and that this is just continuing to be a trend and plaguing him. We know what he's talking about there, and it needs to change. And guys like Marcus came to battle last night, and there were just not a lot of guys. I don't know if they didn't respect their opponent, but the Wild, in case the players aren't aware, are 27th place, and they've been 27th place for a month and a half now. This has been since the Detroit game that they've been in this position, stuck there.
And
they
just
are nowhere.
lost to one of the four below them.
Yes, they have no right whatsoever to take any other team for granted, and it almost cost them a really embarrassing loss yesterday. And I do think that we are at that point. Talking to Billy Guerin a lot lately. That those two games before the break, I think, spoke a lot to Bill. And he is, I think, at the point where he just realizes that this just might not be their year. They're inundated with injuries. It just continues to happen. They just have been underachieved all season long, if you want to call it underachieving. And they just, every time they have the ability to get some traction, they just don't do it. And now maybe that changes in a week or two if they somehow, if they go beat the Penguins and they go to Vegas.
It has to
and
change now. They have zero time to wait remaining,
but he's going to do nothing to try to save the season at this point. I think what we're looking at is probably, an acceptance at some point here in the next 3 weeks that it's probably not their year, and maybe we see some guys go out the door again. They're not going to be, people keep like, when are they going to sell? When are they going to sell? Like, what are you selling? They're like, even if they make that turn in their own mind that this is not their year, it's not like they're going to just be a bunch of different trades that are going to happen. Pat Maroon's probably their guy that could get them maybe a 4th or 5th round pick or a player or something. And he now went under the knife for back surgery, won't be back by the trade deadline, can still be traded, but that is going to hurt his value. Bogosian's not getting a lot,
which
maybe a 6th or a 7th.
is about what you gave up to get him.
Yeah,
so it's
there's and Duhaime's probably the most interesting one, and then the one that's going to be, is going to be the talk going into the trade deadline is Flower.
And that's all Flower.
Yeah,
that's going to be his.
He is
call,
going to be the one
choice.
that's going to make that decision.
Right. I think the two games heading into the break were killers. They were killer losses. Leads in the third period of both games, and the way that they lost both by making careless mistakes in their own zone and just didn't put the finishing touches on what could have been 2 wins that could have changed the season. And so I think it's interesting when you look at Hines' time. I was looking at this today as I was putting things together for tomorrow. On one hand, it feels like they've been spinning their wheels other than the fast start, which was really buoyed by goaltenders all of a sudden going 94% over 14 games. But if you look at it from the other perspective, it was 11-3. It's 5-3 in the last 8. The only stretch where it was miserable was in the middle, and that was largely with 7 guys out of the lineup where they went 1-7-1. So you could look at it that way and say, if you eliminate that stretch where they were 7 men down for 4 games and 5 men down for 3 more and went 1-7-1, other than that, you're 16-6 since the coaching change. But if you look at it the way I think at least the way I perceive it is, it was 11-3, and since then it's been 1 up, 1 down most of the way, and just not a team that looks like it's on the verge of ripping off 6 or 7 in a row, which is probably what it's going to take at some point between here and the finish. There's probably going to have to be a 6 out of 7, a 7 out of 9 kind of stretch if they're going to be able to catch some of these other teams. The only thing I will say, I continue to look at the other teams on the bubble, and none of those teams are great, complete clubs either. So you're not chasing teams like Colorado or somebody where they're also winning 6 out of 8. You're chasing a bunch of teams that are losing as often as they're winning. I think there's still a reasonable chance that they could get back in this race, but there just isn't. You can't lose games like last night, for example, which they didn't, but it was certainly there for the taking for Chicago at some point.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's what Hines was saying, and Vinny Lettieri doesn't make a skate save and a beauty there, and with 3 minutes left in the game, that game might be going to overtime or worse there. Thankful for the Italians yesterday, huh? With Foligno and
I'm always
Lettieri.
thankful for the Italians. Why wouldn't you be?
Yeah. Maybe the key to
last
this,
name ends in a vowel.
During that stretch of guys out, we're talking about, they're out without their number 1 goalie, they're without Kaprizov, they're without Spurgeon, Brodin, Foligno is missing a ton. Maybe the key to all this was the loss of Vinny Lettieri.
Well, they were losing guys in every role.
Before last night, they had won 5 of 15 games without Vinny.
Yeah, and
11-3 with Vinny,
and obviously that coincided with when Vinny was out. It also happened to be when Spurgeon and Brodeen. And
I know, but I'm just saying maybe he was the key.
But, right. Well, I think I was talking with a couple of the other broadcasters during that time, and I said, when you look at what they were missing simultaneously, their best two scorers, their best two defensemen, their best third line guy in the physical grinder in Foligno, their best goaltender, and so then you're missing a fourth liner too. And I don't say that to diminish it. When you're missing guys in every single spot, it's hard to replace them all at the same time.
Yeah, it's impossible.
No team could withstand the injuries that they had, and then it coincided with a stretch in the schedule where it was 2 games against Winnipeg, 2 games against Dallas, included in that 9-game stretch, where maybe if that stretch is where you catch the Ducks and the Sharks and the Coyotes and teams like that, you could somehow get through 4-4 and keep your head above water, but instead they happen to be bumping into the hottest teams in the league.
Absolutely. Let's talk about Marc-Andre Fleury night against the Pittsburgh Penguins on Friday night. He's probably having dinner right now at Crosby, Letang, and Malkin, probably getting pranked or levying pranks or something. And then it's going to be, they're going to treat it very much like your normal 1,000-game ceremony. So it's not going to be, it's not going to be like Jerome McGinley, retirement night where we're going to sit there during a 35-minute ceremony. It's going to start at 7:05, puck drop at 7:17. They're going to probably play a video. It's pretty cool that they did this, and this was intentional to have the Penguins in town for it. He's not very comfortable with it. Hopefully he's not like Nicholas Backstrom when there's a ceremony and then he has to start. We've seen that show many times in a while. that never
the cool
went well.
thing for Fleury is that he got 552 as well, so you can celebrate both things on the same night. Against the Penguins is perfect. It really is a great way to honor what has been an unbelievable career and an unbelievable guy for this organization. He's been such a terrific addition for Minnesota. This will be a great way for the fans to show some appreciation for him on a special night.
I'm really interested to find out after this game is now behind you, because then the trade rumors are going to start to ratchet up, because obviously they weren't going to trade him before Marc-Andre Fleury night. But what he decides, because it will be completely up to him. He's made the playoffs 17 years in a row. He's made it extremely clear that he wants to make the playoffs again. He wants to make the playoffs again in this uniform, in this city, in this market. But if things continue to go awry, there is going to come a time where Bill Guerin has that conversation with him and asks him what he wants to do. Now, there are a lot of contenders, like you and I have talked about many times on this podcast and informally as well, that have unbelievable goaltending flaws right now. Gorgiev is overworked in Colorado, could use a backup. Stuart Skinner right now is overworked in Edmonton, could use a backup. Carolina could use a starter. Let alone a backup. New Jersey, Toronto. I mean, there's going to be a lot of teams that I think come at least calling. There's still other goalies out there, but they're going to cost a heck of a lot more. But what Marc-Andre is going to have to decide is if he picks a place where he legitimately has a chance to win a cup, this isn't going to be just away from his kids for a month. This could be a long playoff run away from his kids for 3 months. And I don't think he wants that. So he is going to have to decide what he wants to do here. And I don't know if he's come to that realization in his own mind, what he wants to do.
Well, I also get the feel that, and I haven't talked to him about it, but he wants to play.
Yeah.
So it isn't going to be like, hey, go here and you're going to be this guy's backup in a spot where you play once every 4 games and maybe 0 in the postseason. I think there are some spots where it might be a good fit where there's the possibility that you play a major role with it. But it's different to go to someplace and play a major role or to go someplace where you just dive in when it's not your team.
Yeah.
It's different to be the backup with a team you've been with all year and they're your guys and you've been to battle with them than to be the hired gun, so to speak, who drops in and now you just have a very minor role. So I don't see him. I'd say it's unlikely that we see him agree to one of those unless something changes between now and the deadline where maybe there's an injury, let's say in Colorado or Toronto, where there's a chance to go there and legitimately be the man for at least part of the stretch run or into the postseason.
You imagine he goes to Toronto and lifts that team to their first cup in '67, then he's must retire. Must, because they won't just build a statue. They'll anoint him on top of Air Canada Center or Scotiabank Place or whatever the heck they call it now. What is that? Scotiabank?
I don't know.
Everything's Scotiabank or Rogers.
Either that or Rogers.
It's something.
Yeah. I don't even remember what it's called there now. I think it's still Rogers.
Okay. No,
it's-
because the two Rogers are Edmonton and
Well, there
Vancouver,
were
and
three for a
Scotiabank is
while.
Ottawa and
Could
and
be
Toronto.
Scotiabank.
Yep. You have a question, or
knows?
are you ready to sing the anthem? Oh, okay. Yeah. You might have to take that mic down, lower it a bit, or yep. There you go. That's perfect.
So I'm curious, how you guys feel about the health and wellness of some of the players that are going.
Physically or mentally?
Both.
Okay.
Well, what's been bizarre is whatever this bug is that's going through the team.
Very bizarre.
And it's a legit thing.
No,
like,
I
there
know.
have been some of
I've
these
gotten
guys that have been. It's been 3, 4, 5 days for some of these guys.
Middleton's had it for like a month.
Right, and it's where when we've talked to some of the guys after they were done and they've shared what their life was like during this. I mean, it's
ugly.
It's knocked them off their feet a lot more than what they have let on heading into games.
Let's put this: Brodin didn't have any weight to lose, and he is gaunt right now.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't believe what he looked like. He looked like a tan pencil in the locker room in Chicago yesterday. So I was a little worried when
almost
it was
like a flashback to the Mumps days.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, yeah. I won't get back into that. But yeah, in terms of their health, I mean, they're getting healthier, other than Maroon, obviously being out of the lineup right now. And this doesn't preclude them from being able to trade him. I remember the Wild acquired Gustav Nyquist last year, knowing he'd still miss a month, and he actually came in, probably was their most impactful forward other than Marcus Johansson in the short time that he played. Back to the team a little bit here. You look at the schedule coming up here, and obviously Vegas, Arizona, just the importance of those two road games to really. Do you think those two games are going to sort of set the path here?
I think the first 2 weeks here out of the break, and there's no. I don't think that's a unbelievably insightful comment or anything. I just think they've left themselves so little margin for error that they had to come out of this break on top of their game. And there is no time to wait. This has to start right now. We had a graphic on our broadcast heading into the break. At that time, they had the second easiest schedule remaining of anybody in the NHL. Only San Jose had an easier schedule. But that doesn't matter if you don't take advantage of it. And they didn't right before the break with games against Nashville and Anaheim. And now they had Chicago coming out. Pittsburgh's a middle-of-the-pack club. This was a stretch where you needed to probably take 6 out of 7, and they lost the first 2. So that makes it tough. There isn't any more time to wait. They have to right now. They got to go on a run, and it's got to be immediate.
Yeah, Bill Guerin named GM today of the Four Nations face-off that's going to be happening next year between Finland, Sweden, United States, and Canada. Then the 2026 Olympic team. By the way, I'm just laughing because the woman that came up, which you all might be friends with, she came up to ask a question, was clearly just to get a T-shirt. She's grabbed the T-shirt, asked that question, like, "What do you think of the health?" Grabbed the T-shirt and left. So I just think that was kind of humorous. She just wanted a new T-shirt. Oh, okay. So anyway,
did she at least wait for the answer before she left?
No, I think she was booked it. Hey, those are really nice T-shirts. So in the 2026 Olympic team, I think that we all knew. I mean, this was just a absolute guarantee that he was going to be the GM. Remember, he was going to be the GM of the Olympics in Beijing after Stan Bowman stepped down after the whole Chicago Blackhawks scandal, and Billy Guerin took over for about a month. And then, obviously, once the NHL pulled out of that because of the pandemic and didn't go to Beijing, and it became amateurs, then he was no longer going to be the GM because he was managing the Wild. So it was just a guarantee that he was going to become the GM here, especially after the NHL announced last week that they're going to be in the 2026 and 2030 Olympics. This is a dream come true for Bill Guerin. I mean, this is somebody that has represented the USA at 3 Olympics, has won medals for them, has the 8th most goals amongst U.S.-born players in NHL history, and it's going to be interesting the staff that he puts together. I got to think Mike Sullivan's going to be the leading contender to be the head coach. I've got to think Tom Fitzgerald's on the staff, Don Waddell's on the staff, Bill Zito's on the staff. Maybe not Don if he doesn't want to be. Maybe Chris Kelleher, the Wild's director of player personnel, and then come June 15th to 17th. All 4 teams have to name their first 6 players on the roster, and it's going to be interesting. He's got some tough decisions.
He does not in the top 6. Yeah. I think he'll be fine finding 6. But it was interesting. had texted me saying, like, hey, you want to talk about this tonight? And it is a tremendous honor for Billy. I'm happy for him. And it's his time with Team USA as a player. I've talked to him about it before, are some of the highlights of his hockey career. Means a lot to him to represent the country, as it should. But I think it's interesting when you look at Team USA, and I joke because the first six you're not going to miss. You might miss with who should be in the six but all of them are going to be on the team.
Yeah.
And this is an interesting United States team, and a couple of the decisions that might be tough for him are with his own guys, because I think, as I was just jotting it down as I sat down here before the show, I think Brock Faber and Matt Boldy both would be guys that I don't think you'd consider either one of them no-brainers.
Yeah.
But they both for sure would be in the mix to be, Faber probably somewhere between a 4 and a 8 defenseman for you, and Boldy, I don't think he would be in your top 9 to 10 forwards, but he's for sure worthy of conversation. And then a lot can change between now and then, but those might be two of his most difficult decisions.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that Faber, I think he'll be a lock. Boldy, not so much. There's just so many forwards. But you look at the D, I mean, obviously you're going to have Quinn Hughes, and you're probably going to have Luke Hughes. You're going to have Charlie McAvoy. You're going to have Adam Fox. You're going to have Slavin. So there's your, your top.
I like Zach Werenski.
The only thing though is Werenski. I don't think he's a lock anymore. I mean, he's had a lot of injuries. I don't think he's the same player that he once was.
Probably not.
I think Faber. I mean, obviously, I think Faber is probably somebody that you're
personally.
I
take Faber over Werenski or Slavin, but I think those
Slavin
guys
too.
I would, but I didn't have Slavin in my. I had 5 that I thought were no brainers. The 2 Hughes, McAvoy, Fox, and Werenski, I think were no brainers, and then guys like Slavin, John Carlson, Brock Faber were kind of my next. Jones for me is out, but I had Faber, Carlson, and Slavin as my next 3, so that would be 8 defensemen. And I think Faber
it's
for
two
sure
different tournaments. Like in 2 years, Brock Faber is on that Olympic team.
No
I
doubt.
think but you're talking about next season. I think Brock Faber is on the team. Boldy, I think, is going to be tougher because I mean, again, you have a finite amount of wingers. This is not an all-star team. You want to.
You got to have guys play different roles.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you even brought up, like a guy like Charlie Coyle makes a lot of sense.
Depending on what you need on your roster. I mean, which one of these guys end up in the middle, but you got Austin Matthews, Jack Eichel, Jack Hughes, and JT Miller. That to me, they were just the first 4 centers I wrote down.
Larkin,
but Larkin could play in the middle, and you start to look at you've got a bunch of scoring wingers, guys like Robertson and Connor and Jake Gensel and Tage Thompson, but at some point you're going to have some guys who are your shutdown type wingers. Yeah. And for me, you
haven't even mentioned the Kachucks.
No, the Kachucks. Yeah. Well, no, they could be in that role. Yeah. But then you got guys like Keller and maybe Caulfield and Boldy. But they're more the similar scoring type guys. So now all of a sudden, does it make sense to have a third or fourth line guy that's like a Coyle, that's a penalty killer, that's a grinder type, plays against the best, takes big faceoffs for you? I don't know. It'll depend on how the rest
Jason Robertson, Troy Terry.
I didn't have Terry on my list, but the 2 Kachucks for sure. Robertson, Connor, Larkin, maybe Gensel. I mean, there's a lot of good wingers.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing, just listening to us talk here? Not one of us even thought of Trevor Zegras. Isn't it amazing how his stock has just...
Yeah.
And this is a young kid. His stock, this isn't just with us. Like, his stock league-wide right now is really, really low.
He's not in the same class as these guys that we're talking about in terms of an all-around hockey player. Maybe for some highlight reel stuff or skills like trick shots, but that's about it.
Yeah.
But then obviously the strength of this U.S. team compared to the others will be goaltending with Demko, Hellebuck, and Ottinger. I haven't looked really in depth at the other teams, but you got to think Eriksson Ek and Brodin are no-brainers to be on Team Sweden. And, those, you always think of Canada as the deepest club, but I think the U.S. might have 3 goaltenders better than anybody Canada has.
I completely agree. And I think Hellebuck's probably the number 1 there. And then obviously the Olympics. Is there a chance, since right now, so the next week, the IIHF, and I'm working on a story with Joe Smith right now where we've talked to, a dozen Russian players from Ovechkin to Kaprizov to We're getting Malkin tomorrow, Kucherov, Sergachev. Man, what a terrible break for him yesterday. We're doing a story on just how tough it is for these guys to have to sit there and watch all these international competitions without them being included. The IHF is meeting in Switzerland next week to discuss whether or not Russia can sort of get back in. And right now, it sounds like no decisions be made, and it's still extremely iffy while this war with Ukraine is going on. So there is definitely no guarantee that at 30 years old, a Kucherov or Vasilevsky or, these guys are ever going to be able to take part in Olympics. But, maybe we can, maybe Bill Guerin can start working over the next year to get Kaprizov American
US
citizenship or something and get him on Team USA.
I'd say unlikely.
Yeah.
But you know what's interesting when you look at this tournament, I think, long term, Russia, let's assume that everything in the world settles down. Russia's going to be in this thing. And then what do you have, a sixth team that's the other European countries all combined as one or something?
Mm-hmm.
That might be a good way to do it, where you get all the other players an opportunity to play so that you don't have a few guys who are left out from, from countries that aren't deep enough to field a team. But you could do a 6-team tournament in the middle of an NHL season without disrupting it too much.
I was talking to Kaprizov about this the other day, and he's pained about it. I mean, that they can't be. Let's be honest. The only reason why they're having a 4 Nations Cup is because right now Russia can't be in. Otherwise, they'd like to have a full World Cup. So they came with this. But what it does is it screws the Swiss, the Germans, the Czechs, the Slovaks. It's really like, to me, this 4 Nations Cup is kind of a crock. But hopefully it's sort of the catalyst to eventually get the World Cup back into a constant cycle. But the Olympics, it's going to be to not have Russia be involved. And you look at Kaprizov as being one of those guys that scored a golden goal and knows what it means to represent his country. It's just going to be bizarre to not have all these NHLers taking part and guys like Kaprizov are just on vacation somewhere. It's quite strange. If you have questions, come on up to the microphone. Hey, this is Russo. Now is the time to choose you and get healthier the Livia way. When you join Livia, you'll receive a personalized and doctor-recommended program tailored to your unique needs, goals, and lifestyle. The Livia team of dedicated professionals will guide you every step of the way, providing you with the tools, support, and motivation you need to succeed. Join Livia today, and you'll get your first 3 months free. As a brand ambassador for Livia, I just love the one-on-one support that I receive at my Livia Center. I'm on my way to reaching my goal, and I wouldn't be able to do so without their help. I'm losing weight, feeling great, and feeling better about myself. Join Livia today and get your first 3 months free. Visit Livia.com, that's Livea.com, or call 855-GO-LIVIA. Livia is now offering breakthrough weight loss medication options as well. Visit Livia.com or call 855-GO-LIVIA. It's time to choose you and get started on your weight loss journey the Livia way.
Royal Credit Union's smart checking accounts offer no monthly fees and no minimum balance. Make the switch to a Royal checking account and you'll also get real-time transaction alerts, free mobile check deposits, and surcharge-free access to over 40,000 ATMs across the U.S. Enjoy financial freedom with no minimum balance and no monthly fees when you switch to Royal's smart checking account. Learn more and open your Royal Credit Union smart checking account online at rcu.org/go-checking. Insured by NCUA.
Well, hopefully everybody was at the last show at Tuttle's because Ryan from Huxley Optical came and gave away a bunch of Brock Faber swag that was very generous of him. And Huxley is more than just the official glasses shop of Brock Faber. They're a local small business that makes glasses for the whole family. If you need prescription sunwear, gaming, or office lenses, Huxley can help. They'll even put new lenses in your own frames. Huxley's experienced staff knows what looks best on you and is happy to help you find a pair you love. Huxley is so good at what they do, they've even picked out a pair of glasses for me. It fits perfectly, I looked stylish, and it was so easy. Huxley makes shopping for glasses easy for everyone. The folks at Huxley know what they're doing, whether you need glasses for your computer, sports sunglasses, or an everyday pair. Huxley can help you find something you love and save you some money in the process. If in fact, Huxley Optical is here to help you get more from your HSA and FSA flex banding accounts. Find out more today at huxleyoptical.com or go to their Roseville or Wayzata locations. And Kurt Laux, you have a question? You want to do some stand-up? Yeah. He said they could do a hard 5. Any questions right now? Well, you got to go up to the mic. People at this is a podcast. This isn't. It's a conversation at Tuttle's.
I've got the perfect trade solution for the Minnesota Wild.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
This better be funny.
No, this is going to help everybody. It's going to help. So what they do now is they trade, Fleury, right, to Colorado. You said they need a goalie, right?
Right.
Minnesota gets back Zach Parise.
I knew you were going to say that. Yeah.
Parise scored tonight.
Did he score?
He scored tonight.
You know what
He
that
did.
means?
He scored. He scored. So he is.
You know what that means?
Right.
He has passed Bill Guerin for U.S.-born players.
Right.
Now Bill Guerin fell to 9th.
I don't think that means you'll be trading for him.
No, but I do think that might mean that Zach might retire
That's
tomorrow.
a trade for the future for the Minnesota Wild.
Yeah.
To really build for the future here in Minnesota.
Yeah.
And relieve cap
It
stress.
would lower their
for them.
median age. Yeah, all that.
Okay. Do you want me to just leave the show now and just?
Yeah, unless you have something else.
Yeah. No, I've got nothing else.
Okay,
really.
grab
I think
a tea.
that's a good ending spot for me.
Yes. Yeah. Good thought, though. What's up?
Hello. I don't know if you guys heard Guerin on K-Fan this afternoon.
I didn't.
It was an interesting conversation he had with Barrero about the rest of the season and whatnot. But my question is, you're off. Because everybody says, well, he needs to go to the AHL for a year. What if he comes in and basically plays that he doesn't have to go to the AHL? I mean, you've talked about Husnudinov coming here in 18 days, possibly when his season's over. But what about you're off?
Oh, I'm just telling you, like, I report the news. I don't sit there and guess, stuff, okay? So I'm just telling you right now that I'm just reporting, like, this is an opinion that I'm throwing out there. When Bill Guerin talks about Husnudinov, he talks about him being on the team and burning a year now. He can't do that with Europe. Europe is on the best team in the KHL. He's going to play the rest of the year, so they're clearly not burning a year there. When he talks about Europe is deciding if there's a chance that I am not going to make the team, and there's still ways you could bring him over and have him in camp, and then maybe if he doesn't make the team, you assign him there. But then what you're doing is you're signing him to a contract. When Bill Guerin talks about him at his age, he still talks about him as not being somebody that he'd want to put on the team right away. I don't know. I'm not saying I agree with it. It's not my job to tell Wild fans what I think. It's my job to tell Wild fans what Bill Guerin thinks. And I have completely said, until Bill Guerin is not consistent with this message, I'm going to tell you that right now, the reason why Europe is thinking about resigning there is that he thinks there's a chance that he's going to wind up in Iowa. And that is what Bill Guerin has continually said. When Bill Guerin says, I am fine with him staying in the KHL, that's telling you that in his mind, he's not thinking he's on the team. Do I think he's good enough? Do I think that he should start? Let's see. But right now, that's the message that I'm getting inside the team. Things change, though. A week and a half ago, I thought there was no way they were going to sign Mason Shaw. Mason Shaw had started to play much, much better in Iowa, started to look like himself. Now there's a chance that they sign him. Maybe this changes with Europe. There's lots of conversations that are going to continue to happen between Bill Guerin and Rick Comorow. No decision has been made. I've conversed with Europe this week. He has not made a decision whether or not to stay there yet. So that means that there's still a chance. But the only reason why I'm getting a little heated here is I get into these debates with with fans on Twitter of telling me what I'm reporting, and I am reporting what the news is right now. This is not an opinion game. I'm not a blog, okay? As much as you like to call me that.
I'm still stuck on that's not my job to tell Wild fans what I think.
Yeah,
I thought
never
that's
do.
all I've been listening to you for like 12 years.
I still think Scandella should have been on the power play here.
Take the C away from Miko.
I never, ever campaigned for that. That was another one of our colleagues, and you know who it was. So. All right.
Too much Twitter, man. They just make you mad.
There you go. Sorry.
Yeah. You came close just a couple minutes ago, and you caught yourself.
I almost tweeted. So this morning when I put up the Bill Guerin stuff, and I had to deal with the dumbest jokes back and forth. Oh, everybody going to get a no move clause? Oh, Merrill going to be like the stupidest jokes from thousands of people. I wanted to tell everybody, you want to know why I am always in a crappy mood? Just read my mentions 24 hours a day.
You don't have to read them.
No, you have to.
You can zoom past them.
No. You got to read them. It's important.
I read none of them.
The people want me to read their dumb joke.
I understand, and it makes. This is why, because they know it gets you all riled up.
But yeah, too much Twitter, absolutely. So,
are you a Twitter guy?
No.
Okay,
But
Well, that's why you're
well, good.
a normal human being.
you can hire me. I'll read the mentions for you.
No,
and
you
then
don't want to
just,
do
like,
that.
no,
sift
just
them out.
if you do that, then just zoom past them and
Yeah.
ignore them. What difference does it make?
Yeah.
Well,
If you get some clown whose comment and insight is that John Merrill should get a no move clause and be on Team USA, well, I mean, why waste your time listening to something that stupid?
Yeah.
Just zoom by it.
I agree. The athletic comments are similar, but most of them are just either the room or it's like whatever to do with the bottom 3D. But either way, I had a couple questions about our nudie that we picked up off waivers. Is it Chisholm?
Yeah. Chisholm.
How did we claim him? Because I heard that multiple teams tried to claim him.
Yeah. So the Wild
We were
the
in
worst.
27th place.
Yeah. So basically, all that tells you is if it's true what I'm hearing, that multiple teams tried to claim him, which I'm pretty confident in that what I've reported. Basically, all that's telling you is that the 28th, 29th, 30th, 31st, and 32nd team did not. So that's all that did.
Cool.
The people in Winnipeg really liked him.
Yeah.
Like him as a player.
It just wasn't one of their top six.
Well, he wasn't, and coincidentally, they end up with a guy suspended a couple days later.
I said that to him yesterday.
But they just didn't have a spot where he was going to get regular playing time, and it's the roster game. They had to put him on waivers to try to keep him playing, but they really liked him and think that he's likely to be a top four. They thought top four defenseman in the NHL long term.
Yeah, we'll see.
I talked to Billy about him a little bit. He just said he thinks he's got all the skills and just needs an opportunity. So we'll see if that happens here or not.
Do you think he'd be cheap to re-sign? He's an RFA?
I mean, yeah, he's an RFA. So I mean, you could give him, whatever his qualifying offer is, and at his case, that's what they'll probably do is give him, a 1-year deal as qualifying offer, which would be, 10% more of what he's making right now. I think that's I honestly can't remember the RFA rules off the top of my head, but yeah, as long they're gonna bring him back. I mean, it makes no sense not to. It's essentially like restricted free agents is by definition like you're as long as you give him a QO, late June, you're retaining his rights, and then you just he'll, at this point with 2 NHL games this season, he'll just take his QO. I'm sure.
Yeah,
okay.
He had 5 points in 6 games, I think, in the American Hockey League this year when he went down there for a conditioning stint.
So it seems like a really good kid. Just wasn't part of their top 6. That defense has been unbelievably healthy all year long. I mean, they had a couple injuries in training camp, but they've been just completely healthy. So guys like him and Logan Stanley just haven't been able to play at all this season. And again, coincidentally, Brendan Dillon gets hurt, and now he's getting suspended, and he gets bagged here yesterday, and he would have been in the lineup tonight. And yeah, are you getting? By the way, like Winnipeg's absolutely in the crapper.
They are, and they're getting smoked again tonight. I think, what is it, 0-3-1 or 0-4-1?
Yeah,
and now down 4 against Philadelphia tonight. Yeah, but I haven't been as sold on Winnipeg all year as you have, and they're going to be in the playoffs. There's no question. They've banked enough points to do that, but I just don't see a team that looks like a complete club to me. We'll see.
Yeah. I think they're going through your normal midseason doldrums. So.
Yeah,
I
probably.
mean, that it happens.
They're a good team. They're going to be in the playoffs.
This is the dog days for playoff teams. Like the team's in. This is why, again, it's important for Wild to start really gaining points here, because usually around this time of year, the teams that are ahead of you start to get a little bored and can't have trouble mustering up that motivation to bring it every single night, and it's difficult. So, you have another question?
Based on what you guys know about Chisholm, is there a comparable already on the Wild or in the system? And where do you think he would play next season if someone like Middleton's not going to slide down to the third pair, or obviously not Faber, Brodin, or Spurgeon? So,
I mean, maybe third pair. I mean, obviously you got Brodin and you got Middleton that I think are still going to be top 4 guys, but maybe third pair. I mean, who knows right now where Damon Hunt's development is. I still think he's got a future in the league. Like it seems like talking to people, he's a lot like a Carson Lambos, only he's got a lot more experience now, and he's been an elite AHL scorer from a blue line perspective. But he skates and all that stuff. But I mean, I'll be completely honest. Everything I'm saying is what I see on stat sheets and what some scouts have told me. I have never seen that I know of Declan Chisholm play, or not something that I'm be able to say. But I think they added him clearly because well, for the rest of the year, because they haven't been thrilled with Merrill and Goligoski. He's going to take Goligoski's role. Like Goligoski's be an extra the rest of the year as long as they're healthy, I think. And so we'll see what he does. I'm really interested to see him play and get in the lineup and when that could be, because he's somebody he's been in Miami on bye week, hasn't been skating, and so he'll need a little time. We'll see if he gets in even against the Penguins. So it'll be interesting. By the way, I thought Merrill and Murmis were probably your best pair yesterday. So
They weren't bad.
Merrill looked rested. So, question.
By 2028, do you think the Wild will have won a Stanley Cup by then?
Anthony,
2028,
4 years from now.
4 years from now, I think they'll have made a significant run in the playoffs. Whether or not everything falls into place and you win,
Yeah.
to me, it always feels like what you can predict is a team among, say, the top 2 or 3 in their conference. And those, to me, are always the legit contenders. And then whoever gets the goaltending, stays healthy, has a score get hot, and wins it, that's a little harder to predict. But I think they will be one of the top 3 in the West between now and then, at least one, if not 2 of those years, and make a run.
I mean, the things that really rely on is Boldy become a true $7 million player. Does Kaprizov resign here? The guys like Urov and Ogren and Kuznetsov and Hunter Hayde and Riley Heidt and these guys, they start to pan out. There's some of these defense that we've heard so much about over the years that are not having good years at all in Iowa become players. So there's I mean, a lot of it's going to be on Wallstedt. So, you know, it's way too early. And then you have to compare that we all talk about the Wild's prospects, but there's a lot of teams that are banking prospects right now. The Detroits, the Anaheims, there are a lot of teams that have a lot of kids coming. And you just don't know how those teams are going to develop. So, Marty?
I think it's time for the reckless speculation part of the podcast, if you guys are okay with it.
Perfect.
Let's change gears
Remember,
here.
Michael is not here to tell you what he thinks.
Let's change gears here a little bit. Phoenix Coyotes.
Ugh.
Do you want my reckless speculation first?
The Salt Lake City Coyotes?
I just feel like the current ownership is going to have to sell, and then they either stay or they move. But I just don't see the current ownership.
The current
in place.
ownership has to sell. I totally agree with you. Obviously, if they move, they're selling.
Yeah.
To Ryan Smith in Salt Lake City. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of belief that there's a lot of want that if the team's going to stay in Phoenix, that maybe the Phoenix Suns owner buys. But yeah, that ownership group. The first thing that league needs to do next week, if they announce they're moving to Salt Lake City, is take control of the Twitter account, because it's gone rogue for a year. It's beyond unprofessional the way that they're playing with the heartstrings of Coyotes fans right now. And so that's the first thing that needs to happen. And but I genuinely think they're in deep trouble here. And but like I've said, I've been extremely consistent with this fact. And I mean, I have been told this from lots and lots of people. If they move to Salt Lake City, when Atlanta comes into the NHL as an expansion team, the second expansion team will be in Arizona. The league does not want to leave that market, but they need that market to get its, together. Can I say it? You might as well. You're already editing. They need to get their shit together, and they need to build a building in a proper place that's viable to make that team sustainable and bring in revenue and all that stuff. So the league doesn't want to leave the market, but right now it's just this ownership group has not been able to get it done. So if they leave, they're not going to boot on the Arizona, Scottsdale, Phoenix area. They're not. They're going to eventually go back there. It just might take 5 years. And there will be 2 more expansion teams, because it's going to be, we're talking $1 billion, it's just a guarantee. So, hey there, it's Russo. Aquarius Home Services is geared up to make your new year absolutely fantastic. Are you ready to transform your water experience in 2024? Just imagine turning on your faucet and excitedly declaring, "I love my water." Enjoy worry-free water right now, and guess what? You won't have to pay a penny until 2025. Say goodbye to spotty dishes, revel in softer hair and skin, and wave farewell to annoying white scale buildups and rust stains. With Connecticut, the world's most efficient water treatment system, you'll get purified drinking water directly from your own faucet, all without the need for electricity. And trust me, you'll be amazed at how little salt you'll need. As your local authorized Connecticut dealer, Aquarius Home Services is committed to treating you, your home, and your time with the utmost respect. Don't miss out on worry-free water. Act fast. Financing offers are subject to credit approval. Aquarius believes in earning the right to be recommended. They're just a click away at AquariusHomeservices.com. And don't forget to mention, as always, Russo sent you.
Hey everyone, Attorney Jerry Bosch here with Bosch Law Firm and WorkCompExperts.com. For almost 30 years, we've represented Minnesotans just like you all over the great state of Minnesota to guarantee they've been treated fairly and with respect when they've suffered a work-related injury. A work injury can change your life in an instant. You need someone on your side who can help you focus on getting back on your feet and getting paid while you do. You may be entitled to medical benefits, wage loss benefits, job placement, retraining, and payment for permanent disability. To make sure you are being paid all the work comp benefits you're entitled to, please call the attorneys at Bosch Law Firm. The call is always free, and there's never a fee unless we recover benefits on your behalf. Call 651-333-8300, Bosch Law Firm, or visit us at WorkCompExperts.com.
Holy crap, Johnny, I'm so honored. Usually it's just your brother coming to these shows.
Hey guys, so we all know the Bill Guerin news today, US GM 2025, 2026. We all remember what happened with St. Louis, Steve Yzerman. St. Louis didn't make the Team Canada team in Tampa.
Yeah.
And right now, you just talked about Boldy. There's no way he'd be on the USA roster right now in my opinion, if you look at the roster.
I don't disagree with you. I don't think he would.
So do you think, and if that stays the same next year or for the Olympics in 26, does that cause a lot of friction in the locker room? Would Billy just put him on because he's on the Wild, or how do you think?
I don't think he'd do that.
No, I don't think he'd do that either.
But I guess the good news is that he's already signed him to 7x7, so Boldy doesn't really have any exit plan out of there. But I think that would show you that Boldy's not becoming the player that they thought he would, and he's going to be eventually a tradable asset. But that is way premature. Obviously, it would sting Matt Boldy, especially because some of the guys that would make the team are some of his USA Hockey compatriots. The Jack Hugheses and the group that he grew up with. But look, even if he doesn't make 2025, which I think it would be very tough to do, Boldy's a mature kid. Billy can have a good conversation with him and just say, look, work yourself into that 2026 lineup. Use it as motivation. Be pissed with me. Show me every single day that you're a player that deserves to be on that Olympic team. And so we'll see what happens. It's still a lot of time before they have to come up with that roster.
Well, it's a lot of time, but it isn't a disgrace if you don't make it. When you think about, if you're Matt Boldy, you're not going to be a fourth line guy on most teams. You had made the point earlier. It's not an all-star team. It's a team that's trying to win a tournament. So now you start to look and say there's top 6, maybe top 9 forwards where he could fit. That means there's 6 wingers, either 4 or 6 wingers. To say that you're not in the top 4 or 6 wingers in the country doesn't necessarily mean that you can't play. It's not a slap in the face. The difference with the St. Louis thing is that he was so much more an accomplished player in the National Hockey League when that decision was made. It was more like, do you give this guy a spot because of lifetime achievement as opposed to right now, where Boldy doesn't have that yet. He doesn't have that kind of resume yet.
Yep.
And
but to your point and to Johnny's point, you're going to need guys to be able to accept every single role. Matt Boldy can't play the fourth line.
No, that's what I'm saying.
If
you're talking about, there's
all
only
Bill Guerin
4 or
had to
6
do was
spots.
scout yesterday's game against Chicago, where Matt Boldy wouldn't leave the wall to determine that he's
that's
not
my
willing
point
to go
exactly.
and
There's
make
4 or
that.
6 spots that he could fill. And now you start to say, well, do you put him in place of Jason Robertson? Do you put him in place of either of the Tkachuk brothers? Do you put him in place of Kyle Connor, Tage Thompson? I'm not sure that you could make that case right now. It's not to say you can't in 2026, but right now, I don't think you could. Now, if it's to be one of your extra forwards, extra wingers, for sure, he's on that next group that's on the bubble.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
But that should be like Matt should use that as motivation now, as something like let's prove to the GM that signed me to this $49 million deal that I deserve to be on these 2 teams, and we'll see if he can do it. I mean, Matt's his skill level is off the charts, and I think in a lot of ways with his peer group that were on those teams, he's right there with all of them. But there's still there's just areas of his game that's missing, and I think sometimes he just tries to be way too cute, and instead of just playing hockey. And last night was a great example of that, where it's like he was just messing around with pucks on the corner, along the half wall, and it was just constantly going the other way, especially in the second period. And it really, I think, drove the coaching staff nuts yesterday. And I guarantee that's going to be a conversation that they have. Any other questions here for a little bit? So what else did you do during the break? So I went down to Cancun.
We did nothing other than, we did some things around.
Did you watch the All-Star game at all?
Not. Yeah. I watched almost none of it.
I'll say that. So I normally cover the All-Star game. I got out of it this year. I shouldn't say it like that, but I didn't cover it this year because we have an army of writers up in north of the border. But I watched the skills competition, and I thought it was so much better than anyone they've ever done. I think one big reason, other than Kucherov, is that Connor McDavid helped sort of redevelop this thing. They got 12 players that wanted to work their butt off.
Except for Kucherov. So 11 players that wanted to work their butt off. McDavid, though, put his money where his mouth is, where he basically helped plan this thing and then worked his absolute butt off to try to win it and winds up winning it. But I watched every second of it because my nephews wanted to watch it. My nephews from Atlanta who don't watch hockey as much as their other sports. And and what it actually is, I was sitting there with my nephews watching this. One's turning 11, the other's turning 9. It made me realize that sometimes as cynical adults, we all sit there and roll our eyes at this event. But it is for the kids. But I think
kids love
it. The skill thing was different because it wasn't what drove me nuts is the one, remember back to the Kirill Kaprizov coming in pretending he was Ovechkin.
It was all the gimmicks.
I couldn't watch 30 seconds of that.
Yeah, the thing on the Bellagio fountain.
This was at least competitive. And that's what I've always said is that if they could find a way to make the guys compete, whatever the motivation is to make them compete, then they're fun to watch. And I thought the switch to 3-on-3 would have a little bit of that effect. Give them a cash prize, and you're not asking them to block a bunch of shots or to play because you don't play that way 3-on-3 anyway. And I thought we watched a little bit of one of the 3-on-3 semifinals. We actually drove down to Mankato to watch St. Thomas play Minnesota State one of the nights that we were off. And so we had it on as we were eating lunch on the way down, and it looked like they were at least marginally competitive, and guys were at least skating hard and playing harder than what I remember in the past. Because I've always argued, if you don't want to go, don't go. But if you want to go, then go and compete. And what I was thinking about it, though, as we were standing down there. So they're playing for $1 million for the winning team. What if you get $3 million for each team? So guys are playing for $250,000 or something. And if you do that, and if a guy says that doesn't matter, then say, all right, well, then don't ever come in and hold out in the next contract negotiation and tell me that 6.2 isn't enough, that you need 6.5 if you're going to say that it's not worth the effort to play in this game.
Especially in this one too, if Kucherov didn't want to take place in it, just don't play. Last year, Kirill Kaprizov was the only one that didn't take part in the skills competition. He didn't want to do it again this year, so they didn't pick him. And especially with 12 guys out of 20 whatever that were there, why is Kucherov in it? Just bow out, man. I'm watching with my nephews, and my nephew's watching Kaprizov, and he goes, "That guy sucks." And I turned to him like, he's actually one of the best players in the NHL. Right. He's just acting like a jerk, like a little baby, like he's less mature than you. That's exactly what I told my nephew. And I just don't understand why Kucherov, and he does this all the time. He's such a mercurial guy. Like covering them in the Stanley Cup final a couple of years ago in the Eastern Final. I really lost a lot of respect for him. His whole act, his whole persona, the way he addresses the media on there. I mean, Joe Smith has obviously a very different relationship because he covered with him, and he could probably speak much more intelligently on giving the DNA of what makes that guy tick. But I have seen him treat people with such little respect all the time in these media scrums. And so for him to act like such a baby up there during that thing, I don't know if you noticed on the first one, the passing one, where he was acting like a schmuck. When he got back to the bench, to the middle of the ice with all the players, none of those players even wanted to look at him. And so they're for a guy that's actually respected amongst his peers thought it was embarrassing. It was so obvious. None of them even made eye contact with him when he skated back there after that. So yeah, I don't know. It's just if I'm the league, and it's a shame that you have to say this, then do you really want one of the best players in the NHL acting like
No.
complete donkey all the time.
Well, remember the guy who stands out the most for me that did that was when PK Subban was in it.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, he was like sliding across the ice, pretending like he was trying to block shots. During the
I do remember in
3-on-3.
LA.
And it was like, look, if that's what you're going to do, then don't play.
Yeah, I think it was in LA.
Now you've made it be a joke for everybody else that's a part of it. So that was a very small part of our break. Went and watched a college game. I actually spent a little bit of today trying to figure out where I'm going to watch the Super Bowl in Vegas because
it's hard.
It's almost impossible.
I was trying to help. So you guys are landing at the time, and these players, by the time you land, they're not going to be able to get anywhere. Everybody wants like ridiculous covers to get in.
Right.
So I was actually talking to a couple players, the last couple days about maybe hooking them up with our mutual friend casino host about maybe getting him to the Planet Hollywood party. But it's really like,
it's
this is why
I looked at, you remember that place we went where we sat and had like burgers and beers outside that I think it's called the beer park.
Yeah.
The beer park was you had to have a table of 6 and it was $1,500 to sit at that place where it's like,
I told the players to go to this place called the Flight Club, which is this high-end darts, like sort of bar at the Venetian or Palazzo. And it's amazing, by the way. You should check it out. You'll love it. But again, like by the time they land and get down there, I mean, imagine, like, first of all, you're even going to be able to get a reservation in there. I just don't even think so.
No.
Last topic of the show. Where do you think Jake Ensel? I think Jake's gone. I think he's getting traded.
I think Pittsburgh's in the same spot as Minnesota, where these next 2 weeks are if they all of a sudden string together 5 out of 6, he probably stays. And if it's anything less than that, I think they know that even if they get in, they're not in the same level as the elite teams in the East. But it's hard to let a guy go like that when you got an organization as proud as what they've been over this what last 11 years, 12 years, to say, hey, we're going to deal this guy away, even though we're sitting in a playoff spot.
Yeah. You know who's going to be the most pissed off if Jake Ensel gets traded? Number 87. Guarantee it.
Yeah.
Guarantee
Which
it.
That's my point, is it's going to be hard to sell to guys like that, hey, we're going to move this guy, even though we're sitting in a spot where we could make the playoffs or are in the playoffs.
Cool. All right. Nice to have you back working.
I'm anxious to get back to work.
Yeah. It's been a couple weeks.
Yeah. It's been 12 days.
Crazy. You guys going to show the Fleury thing live tomorrow?
I think so. I'm not sure. I'm probably fairly certain.
Make a call.
Yeah. Well, it won't be my call.
Yeah. Last question, or are we ending the show? Anybody? Going once, twice, 3 times. February 21st is our next live show at Elsie. Hopefully everybody comes on out. Thanks to our incredible sponsors, especially Tuttle's for having us out here. Thanks to Grain Belt, the specials. We'll have another Grain Belt special over at Elsie's on February 21st. Talk to everybody. I got sponsors. Sorry,
we have more sponsors than that.
Yep. Yeah, I know.
We have Huxley Optical.
Yeah. But do you know this is the Aquarius Home Services Studio on location at Tuttle?
And we've got Twill and the Royal Credit Union at both.
Yeah. Thanks to Aquarius Home Services, your local authorized dealer, Connecticut Water Treatments, Huxley Optical, Livia, Weight Control Centers, Bosch Law Firm, Twill in the Edina Galleria, and Royal Credit Union. Thanks, everybody, for coming on out.
So much coming out, there's nothing going in. I know that you feel like you're never gonna win. Oh, but the world won't forgive a winner.
No. You got to read them. Can I say it? You might as well. You're already editing. They need to get their shit together.